Good morning, friends. It's Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. I'm Pastor Thor Ramsey. This is Gospel for Five, where we take 5 minutes out of our day and focus on the gospel and the one who saved our souls. As you may know, we've been going through Paul's letter to the churches in the area of Galatia, the letter that's called Galatians. We've been going through it verse by verse. We're really in the middle of verse 10, where after Paul speaks some very forthright words, some really blunt words to the Galatians, he says, For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please men? If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a servant of Christ. That is so convicting right there. Boy, just on its face value, if I were still trying to please men, I would not be a servant of Christ. Isn't that really convicting if we just take that verse, right? That's a verse that will convict every and any Christian, I would venture to say. Because if we think of this in parallel with the teaching that you can't serve both God and money because you will love the one and hate the other, there's really a parallel to that dynamic here. Either you're doing things to please people or you're doing things to please God. And I would venture to say most of us in our humanness want to please people. We do want to be liked. I think it's natural to want to be liked. Because again, we do want to be winsome for the gospel. As I mentioned yesterday, we don't want to be obnoxious, because the obnoxious person says very bold things, but they're oblivious to how people react to them. They're not even concerned about how people react to them. We are concerned about how people react to what we say, so we're concerned about how we say it. But the fact of the matter is, we have to say it. Sometimes we have the right tone, sometimes we don't. And some of that just has to do with being human, the day we're having. But I think the primary issue here is pushing through this fear. It's what the Bible calls fear of man. We fear people's reaction to us, the social pressure, being the social outcast, being thought of in a negative way, being looked upon as someone who is unenlightened, someone who is not woke, someone who is narrow-minded, bigoted, all kinds of really ad hominem arguments that are really against our personhood, just really accusatory of us. You know, it's almost like the argument, I heard this the other day on a television program, of course, well, an internet program, same thing now, but the actual quote was this, the ignorant, well, I'm paraphrasing, but it's pretty close. If the ignorant want to believe, referring to God, if the ignorant want to believe, they will find a way. Now, there's multiple problems with that statement, but one is just in the laws of logic. That particular statement makes an error of logic, because the idea is this: just because I desire something to be true doesn't mean the thing that I desire to be true is false. So that's the main problem with that statement. If the ignorant want to believe, they will find a way. It's just saying they want so hard to believe, they'll just believe what they want to believe. But that's not actually a logical, rational argument. Because again, I might desire, in the very fabric of my being, I might desire that there is no God. But my desire doesn't make it true, right? And it doesn't make it not so. It's not an argument. The same way that if I desire that there is a God in this universe who actually cares for me and has a plan for me, just because I desire that doesn't make it false, right? So it's not an argument. It's just it's in one sense, it's an emotional statement. That's how television argues. Television always argues emotionally. The internet always argues emotionally, not logically and rationally. It doesn't argue actually with arguments and truth. So the point here being, one of the biggest things we have to pray about pushing through as Christians to be effective in this world for Jesus Christ and the gospel is the fear of man. Now, what has God said to you today?